And earlier on in our talk, you said that the three principles has had a considerable influence in your own personal life.
Yeah.
Would you say more about that?
Sure. So I'm going to kind of do a bit of a historical kind of journey, as it were. So when I first went for we had this seminar, I was the thing I was struggling with most, let's say, at that point in time was my short-temperedness and my anger, my frustration, my general frustration with life, but also specifically with my fellow workers. I had zero patience for people and basically zero patience for life. In my arrogance, I felt that I knew best and that I was, in charge, and people needed to follow instruction. And I became very short-tempered and angry with them, aggressive with them, when they didn't. So I had tried to deal with that prior to coming across the principles. I'd had some, you've probably been familiar with, NLP coaching, and I'd had some of those sessions, and I felt it was a lot of hard work, and it didn't help me, or I couldn't help myself through that understanding. Now, we had a presentation of the principles, and I heard something in that kind of seemed very different, and seemed it seemed more logical, or more helpful, that it would help, let's say. It seemed more logical that it would help, and that I needed to get a deeper understanding to help me with that. So I went for a 4-day intensive, and heard a lot of ideas in that. Came back with a deeper appreciation and understanding of what these principles are. But primarily I heard that my thinking is not as real as I think it is, as I believe that it is. And I don't have to act on every single thought that goes into my head. It's not mine. That I felt like I used to take responsibility for every feeling, every thought that I experienced, and I had to follow it. I didn't realise that I had so much free will. So I came back, and that week I had a moment where I started getting very frustrated, and I heard these ideas and just kind of waited to see what would happen if I didn't react to it. And surprisingly enough, the moment passed, and I didn't shout, and I didn't get upset, and I moved on. And that taught me a big lesson. Like, from that moment, that insight, as it were, that I saw that there was truth in this, that I didn't have to follow it. I realised that I had a choice, and I got caught up along the way. And I over the next year, like, things, sometimes I saw it, sometimes I didn't, but I saw that I had the potential, and I saw that I didn't have to. And so I wasn't really bothered with success or failure. The more that happened, the more that grew, that feeling grew, and I changed from being this naturally, in inverted commas, aggressive person, into being someone far more understanding, far less arrogant, far more approachable, and just generally a nicer guy to be around. And over the years, because that was 8 years ago, whatever, I've seen lots of other kind of changes along the way, and subtle changes, like, that was me being very aggressive, that example. There was a way in which I just generally showed up as a grumpy person, let's say, like I would, kind of, as like, what, you first wake up in the morning, that's how I kind of showed up in work, or just as a human being. And I realised that was a choice too. Like, I didn't have to do that. Like, that was just created in my own experience, in my own thinking. So I kind of realised I could let that go and just show up as a generally nice guy. Now, my biggest change along the way was 3 years ago. So in 2012, I weighed 20 stone, 125 kilos. And the truth is, I'd been overweight my whole life. Like, in my mind, it felt like I'd been that obese my whole life, but I hadn't. It was at university that I really kind of ended up piling on the pounds, as it were. I'd been chubby up until that stage, but I hadn't really, weighed or been that obese, let's say. That's, at my height, at 5'10", that's morbidly obese, people, call it. And I hadn't seen any connection to that and this understanding, or I hadn't really understood why I was like that. It didn't strike me that I was eating particularly badly up until I saw that I was. It didn't strike me that it had anything to do with the fact that I didn't exercise, even though I later obviously saw that it was. It didn't strike me that it had anything to do with anything apart from just genetically or, let's say cosmically, I was just that guy who was, that big. I wasn't particularly distressed by being that size, but I was, and me and my wife, we'd kind of spoken about maybe losing some weight for a family event that we had coming up a year later. So I said, fine, I'll try a diet again, kind of given up on diets basically, because I really wasn't that interested and I didn't see they had that much of an effect. Like everyone, you start a diet and then as soon as it starts getting hard, you're just like, what the heck, And that's basically what happened this time round. Within a few weeks, I was kind of like, this is hard work and I can't be bothered, I just want to eat. And so I went into the kitchen for my fourth meal of the day, and I had this insight similar to the one that I'd had over my anger, which is like, you don't have to do this. Like, why are you doing this? And I reflected internally and I saw, well, you're doing this because of how you feel, because of your thinking. Your thinking is creating an experience for you that you have to go and eat. So you don't have to. And I kind of saw that, and it really touched me, and I kind of decided that I wasn't going to do it and walked away from it. And that, again, that moment kind of showed me that suddenly from that everything started looking very different. Like I realized that I was the weight that I was and the size that I was because of how I was eating, and I saw where that was coming from, that it was coming from inside of me, it was coming from my thinking, it was coming from those feelings. I saw that I had a choice over exercise, that I wasn't the type of guy who doesn't like exercise, that exercise was a choice. Like, you might experience thoughts of not exercising or not enjoying exercise, but you can. And so I basically decided to start afresh with my whole experience of who I was physically and my lifestyle, and I just kind of started, kind of a healthy diet and started exercising. And so over that year, 2013, like I lost 50 kilos, which is 8 stone, and I started running, and I ended up, by the end of that year, I'd done my first half marathon totally from scratch. And last year, actually the beginning of this year, 2015, I just did a full marathon.
Wow.
And it's enjoyable. It wasn't a hard slog, it wasn't difficult, it was simply through an understanding of where it was coming from, of these principles. I saw that I had created the whole thing and I was living from that understanding.
Wow. Wow.
So there's lots of other changes in between in my personal life, in relationships, it touches everything, and I'm still learning about life, and I'm still seeing new things, and I'm still growing from that understanding on a daily basis, thank God. And you know, it's still impacting me, and that's how it generally, that's how it works for me.
So what weight are you now?
Now 12.5 stone.
Great.
Yeah.
And happy.
Yeah, very happy. I mean, yeah, like I said, I was happy before. I wasn't unhappy. I was just out of shape, I guess.
Yeah. We could talk all day. Great, thank you.